This is tape one, side one, interview with Charlie Penzenik. Okay, now let me explain. Oops, how I'd like to do this, and it's worked out pretty well. Essentially, what I'd like to do is start with when and where you were born, where you went to school, when you first started at the mine, what you were doing, and then we'll get into the various things. In most cases, I won't even interrupt you. I want you to tell me in your own words. But where I have questions, I'll come in, and I'm going to have a lot of questions, of course, as we get into your role in the union. So, when and where were you born?
Proctor, Vermont.
Okay. In what year? Or when?
Oh, that was in 1917.
Okay. What month and day?
January the 7th.
Okay.
1917.
Okay, so you celebrated a birthday a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. And where did you go to school?
Well, I started in Passaic back in the early 50s for 3 years, and then my dad didn't like working in, there was a place there called Willard Battery, making batteries for cars, automobiles, trucks, and whatnot. And that wasn't his type of work. So he started to work in the coal mines in Pennsylvania. And right to the west of where we were, they had soft coal. And my stepmother, she didn't like the idea because they used to have explosions. And when they was an explosion in underground, everybody got killed. And everything coming out of the shaft, which is an incline shaft going up anywhere from 35 to 40 degrees. And it would blow cars, men, and coal, and it would blow it all outside. And what they failed to do there, see, they used to take and dust the walls with some sort of a sand containing some chemical. And I guess when things got trying to mine as cheap as they could, well, they didn't do too much spending. And that's what caused the death of many people in a soft coal.
I have one question. You said you were born in 1917 and you were going to school in the 50s.
Well, let's see, that was in, that's in Passaic.
Okay, what were you doing between 1917 and the 50s?
Well, let's see, my mother, my father were in Vermont. Then he moved from there to Pennsylvania. And of course, my mother died, he remarried, and I had a good stepmother. She would take me to visit. She heard of an explosion next town, and of course my father went further down. He wasn't in that one. Took me piggyback all the way down to find out who was killed, or if her husband was killed. And that I remember fully well.
What year roughly?
Oh, that was pretty hard to remember.
Okay, in the 20s. When did you move to New Jersey?
Well, Passaic is in New Jersey, but Vermont. Yeah, we lived in Florida for
Probably late 20s, early 30s.
something around there.
Okay, because your dad said when I asked where he went to school, he said the site in the 50s.
Yeah,
No, no.
the dates,
Okay, fine. Okay, do you recall when you started working at at the Mount Hope.
Yes.
When would that have been roughly?
Well, we both worked in Mount Hope, my dad and I. We worked together for several years, and then I didn't care to work where you were actually mining the iron ore.
Right.
And so I become a foreman in mechanical work.
Okay. What was your dad doing there?
What's that?
What work did your dad do?
What work?
Was he a miner?
Yeah. We were both working in a mine. We were both working together under the iron,
Right.
in the iron vein.
Okay.
And
Did he eventually retire?
my dad,
Yes.
not there. He went to Florida, and that's where he retired and died. Buried
Okay. So he lived through his life in the mine without incidents.
Yeah.
No,
there. Yeah.
No.
no. He left mining, probably late thirties, early forties, and he had a farm up in Flanders,
Okay.
and he did other things.
Yeah, he worked in Hercules.
Right. But he left the mines, I'd say late thirties, early forties.
Okay.
Yeah, just at that time.
Okay,
yeah.
but he was able to leave without mishap.
Yeah.
Okay. Unlike the Kovach's father.
Yeah.
Okay. So while he was working there, you said you decided you didn't like being underground, so you became a foreman. Was this a machinist area?
Well, they started excavating not the ore, but the rock.
Right.
And first there was an outfit called HopeCon, and then Icon. And Icon started shipping rock to New York day and night, 7 days a week.
And this is later on, this is in the seventies.
Yeah,
Skipping.
just about that.
Okay. Where Mount Hope Quarry is, rock company is
Right,
now.
yeah.
The quarry.
After Schmidt was the Pale Industries, and then he had
Right.
several other.
I think they're still in
Okay.
business.
Okay.
Orion.
Okay. Now, I understand you were one of the. I think they referred to you as a mine captain or shift boss,
Well, shift.
shift foreman.
Yeah.
Okay. And what were your duties?
Well, placing men in different parts of the mine, and my job was to travel to see how things were progressing and taking records, and going with the engineer and giving the different names of the people that worked in different locations underground, and that took place steady
Okay.
until after the iron industry became a problem with the freight. Freight was eating up the biggest portion of the profits, so there wasn't very much worthwhile keeping up the mine because you got your ore up in Nova Scotia, and then the ore set up on top. They're still mining the ore there.
Yeah, but I understand it's starting to get scarce
Yeah.
in Michigan.
Yeah, well, not Michigan, Nova Scotia.
Right.
Michigan, that's red ore.
Yeah. Hematite.
Yeah, hematite.
Okay.
And they're still mining in Nova Scotia because that's nothing right from the surface comes right out with the ore.
I believe it's called strip mining.
Yeah, that's
Strips the
right.
land. So your dad began in the 20s.
Probably the thirties, working in the mine in the mid-thirties.
Okay. Now, when did you become involved with the union? Do you remember?
Oh,
And how did you become involved with the union?
well, there was a fellow, I forget his name. Somehow or other, he got to know me, and he sort of took me under his wing, and he taught me how to get the people to join the union, and that's the way it started. And Smulders. He was the head of the mine mill Smulders.
Okay. Now, I'm trying to place the time. The mine was open in the 20s, and I think it shut down around 1932 or something, and then opened up about 5 years later, 37. It opened and closed many times throughout its history because of strikes and poor working conditions. So, will you now? Do you know Steve Harsanyi?
Steve Shawnee?
Yeah. I met with him last Friday, and he said that a lot of the guys started working in 37 when it reopened. Were you there before that?
Oh, no, I thought that's when you started. You started working there right before you got married.
Yeah. But my father worked there before then.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so that must have been the previous time before it closed. Okay. Now, I have.
No, they were all living in that area, on that picture, when they got married, or before they got married. Dad actually graduated from the 8th grade in the Mount Hope school system, so he had to be about 13 or 14
Okay.
at that time. And then he went to high school and then dropped out to help support the family, various
Okay.
jobs. But he didn't go directly into the mine until right before he married my mother, which was in 1938. So about 36, 37 is when he became a miner.
Okay. I just thought of some other questions. If your dad was working in the mine, did you live in a company house?
Yeah.
Okay. Which meant that you probably shopped at the store,
Uh,
at the company store.
we started there, but my dad figured, well, wait a minute, I can go right down either Horton or I can go Dover, and I can buy whatever I want and pay much cheaper prices.
And I believe he was correct.
So that's the way
Okay.
it
Which,
went. But there, little by little, it dropped out. The store went bankrupt. You know, all they've done
Right.
is just sold a few groceries and candy, and there was just one woman that took care of the small items that were
Okay.
selling.
And then it was just
Over the
Mr.
counter.
Wright.
Huh?
That was just Mr. Wright.
That was Mr. Wright's store,
Yeah.
but Margaret worked for Mr. Wright.
Yeah.
who was Margaret?
Margaret, she was the daughter of the mine captain.
Okay.
You don't remember her last name?
Margaret.
Wellington? Wellington, okay.
It could be, and then she married a guy from Rockaway.
Now,
His name was changed.
as a shift foreman, did you report to the mine captain then?
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand Ken Kramer was a mine superintendent.
No.
Oh,
No, he wasn't the superintendent. He just, let's see, he was in charge of the medication for people with injured cuts or whatnot. He wasn't the one.
oh, okay. Now, when you were living in the company house and the mine closed down, were you able to stay in that company house?
Yeah.
Okay, so your family lived there for quite a while until the
Yeah.
mine reopened. I think it was about 5 years. And the same owners owned it at that time?
No. First it was Shamoon Industries.
Well, no, this would be before
This is
Shamoon.
back in the 30s.
This is in the 30s when your father was a miner.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Do you remember the mines closing at all in the 30s?
It's the dates I don't remember the exact dates.
When you were living on Hickory Hill, was everybody working in the mine in one capacity or another? And if they didn't go underground, did they do something else?
Well, they started the rock quarry. That was the latest. The railroad took away the biggest portion of
I
the
don't
rock.
ever remember hearing stories about them, living at Hickory Hill in the late 20s, 30s, and not being employed.
Right. Well, interestingly, during a later period when the mine was closed and supposedly shut down, Johnny George gave me payroll stubs today showing that people were still on the payroll. So it may very well be that your father was still doing work for the quarry at that point, and that's why you were allowed to stay there. And
See, my dad didn't have nothing to do with the quarry because he lived to go live in Florida. I still stayed.
Because the only ones who lived in the company houses were the underground families of
Yeah,
underground
yeah.
people. So
And of course, not very many had cars, so
right.
they borrowed from the company
Sure.
store.
Yeah, so the question remains, when the line shut down, like around 1932, what happened, what was the basis for everyone still living in the company houses until 1937, when it reopened? Unless they considered that they were gonna continue to try to open it and therefore left the people there.
I think it changed hands too.
Yeah. Do you remember, with regard to the union, was the UMW in there? John L. Lewis? Because the only records
Lewis didn't have nothing to do with that. That was Mine Mill and Smelters.
Okay, because I had heard of the stories about John L. Lewis coming down to the mine and leading a walkout.
No, he didn't do that.
Okay. Do you remember when it first became unionized?
No, I couldn't
Okay.
tell you.
Okay. Okay. Was it unionized?
I know
in 37?
Lewis came over there to organize, and I and a lot of other people got together that they weren't so interested in the people.
Okay.
It was more or less just a money matter.
Okay.
They didn't represent them the way they should.
Okay.
They didn't get a hold of Mount Hope Mine at all.
But you did see John L. Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
He was at the mine.
Okay. He was trying to
Yeah, he
organize.
was trying to organize.
Okay. I heard one story, which apparently is not correct, but it's sort of funny, that right after he was elected president of the UMW, that he went down to Mount Hope, and everyone was pretty happy with things there. But he told management, he made certain demands, and management refused, and apparently it was right before the Depression came, and the mine was just sort of hanging in there, trying to keep people going. And John L. Lewis said, if you don't meet my demands, we're walking out. And the mine said, go pound salt or something similar to that. And John L. Lewis apparently said to everyone, okay, boys, let's walk. And one of the people I interviewed said they foolishly followed him out the door, and that's when the mine was shut down for quite some time. But from what you say, he never had
He
the power.
didn't have any roots.
Okay, so the mine mill and smelters was really the only union there at that time. Was it unionized when you started?
No.
Okay, so
They came in, I forget the lad's name that organized. I can't think of it.
okay. Now, interestingly, I noticed in 44 and in 47, it's mine mill and smelters, and your name, of course, is in the book. In 44 as president, and 47 as vice president. I guess, like many organizations, once you become president, they don't let you go so fast.
But I'll tell you what, the wife, she didn't care for me to Sundays stay home with me, and we go to church with me
Okay.
and watch the kids.
Okay.
So,
And then in the 50s, I noticed it became the International Union, Union of Automotive and Aircraft Workers.
that lasted for a short time, not too long, I don't think.
Well, that was in the 50s, and then, of course, as of 59, it was the United Steelworkers of America. Which church did your family go to?
St. Bernard.
Okay. At the time you were there, do you remember if there were employees or families you would call immigrant families?
Immigrant?
People who bonded more with their ethnic, the European roots. All of our families became Americans at a certain point.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of Russians and
Oh.
Polish people.
Okay.
Yeah.
A few Hungarians.
Hungarians.
And Yeah, well, that was it. Ukrainians and Russians, they speak almost just like
Okay.
Russian and Polish. They understood each other's language.
Okay. Did everyone seem to get along well together?
Huh?
Did everyone get along well together?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
nobody said, well, I don't like you, you know.
Okay. Were there any blacks working there then?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. Because there was too many whites.
Right.
And of course the blacks were down south.
Okay.
And when they started to migrate over in toward New York, why, there was other industries.
Okay. How many hours a day did you work?
Anywhere from 8 to 10. It all depends on what type of work you were doing. Because if you were working on a contract, piecework like, you wanted to be able to get your drilling done and blasting done
Right.
close to the end of the 8 hours.
Right.
And if you always watch on a watch there, and instead of drilling additional holes, well, you just really said you loaded those holes, and then when the whistle blew, that's when you lit up your dynamite holes.
Okay. Now, when you were doing work for the union, was that part of that 8 or 10 hour day, or was that extra?
No, I wasn't paid by the union.
Right, but you were the local union delegate.
Yeah.
In fact, president of the local there. So, if you had to conduct union activities, did that just come out of the regular day? Or did you have to work above and beyond?
No, you had your regular 8 hours.
Okay.
You didn't work no overtime.
Okay.
And everybody was hoisted out, and if there was another shift that went in.
Okay, so if you had any union business, it was during that 8 hour day?
About at the end of the day, because that wasn't allowed to do the union business underground. But
Okay.
when you were in the change house, well, all right, everybody was going in the showers. All right, before they got into the shower, you had the discussion
Okay.
or a problem to be solved right then and there.
Okay. What was the size of the workforce on each shift?
Huh?
How big was each shift?
How big?
How many
many
people?
men?
How many men on each shift?
Pretty hard to remember.
Okay. Do you remember about how many were working for the mine at that point?
No, I don't think I have any records of that.
Okay. I realize it's a long time ago. Do you remember who the owner was back in the 30s?
It was Shimon himself, and then his son-in-law.
Let me see. Well, Shamoon came a little later. Okay, let me see. Well, it's just shown as Warren Pounder and Pipe. Of course, that was the name that kept going over many
Yeah.
years.
For years.
Okay. How did, as the union boss, how did you get along with the owners?
The owners I didn't have any business with. It was, he had his own delegate that took care of the business with me.
Okay.
Discussed it. And then, of course, we had the union hall, and we had our problems solved there. And sometimes the delegate from the owners would be called in
Okay.
to either agree or disagree.
Okay, generally speaking, how well did the union get along with management?
Good,
Uh-huh.
good.
Would you say they were a labor-friendly company?
Yeah, yeah. They were in the latter part because we got along pretty good. They had to have a profit, so did we have to have a profit.
Right.
And of course, we didn't eat in the company store, from the company store. And, so things changed from the early days. In the early days, they used to build a big wall fence from mountain to mountain, and you stayed inside. You didn't dare go outside. So they used to go up the farm road and go out around the mountain to go out, buy their food, bring it in. They'd have a pickup that would be loaded. Everybody wanted stuff bought that was delivered in that way.
Did those of you from the mine get along well with the people in the outer community, like in Rockaway or?
Oh yeah, there was, yeah.
Okay, was it
Because
cordial?
it was same languages and everything, mixtures,
Right.
English,
Okay.
Jewish, and Hungarian, Polish.
Okay. Do you remember any of the things, any of the leisure activities you and your family did when you weren't working? How did
We
you?
used to go to picnics in the summertime,
Okay.
and they'd have big fields.
We have a big company picnic.
Okay.
The company would provide the money to buy the food, and then of course they had people, lead people that knew what was needed, and they bought it.
And at Christmas time, I remember there used to be a party for the kids with Santa Claus who used to get presents.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
over in Union Hall at Tiba. I think Warren found today, no, Colorado, Warren Mining, owned Richard Mine, right?
Yeah, that was another ownership.
4
Rich.
miles apart.
And in later years, there was a hole broken into the Richard mine, and then up about 75 feet there was a grade going up alongside of each other, because that was the boundary.
But that was a completely different mining community from Mount Hope Mine.
Did they ever get together?
Oh, you mean the people?
The people.
Yeah, the people did, but there's another thing might bring up. See, the ore ran at 70 degrees
Right.
and leaned over 70 degrees. And Mount Hope thought that, well, Richard Mine wouldn't know it because they needed a hoist house to get to the bottom of the ore as much as possible. So they snuck a hoist house off of their property. And that cost them $1 million.
These were people from the Richard Mine?
Huh?
This was the Richard Mine, they did
No,
that?
the Mount Hope built their hoist
Oh.
house on Richard Mine property.
Oh my.
And that cost the Mount Hope Iron Foundry $1 million.
Oh my. What else did you folks do in your spare time? Do you remember if your parents raised chickens or?
Oh yeah, everybody did. Everybody.
Okay.
And chickens and cows.
Okay. Now, did you have any, or do you have any sisters or brothers?
I had a brother, a half brother, and he got killed. And that was it.
You had 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Well,
Half brothers.
Yeah, they were
sisters.
half, but
Okay, so how many lived in the company house then? Your family, there would have been your
they
parents?
put many years.
How many, though?
How many, your mother
In
and
your
father?
family, in your house, how many people?
Well, it's a double. They were a double house.
Right, but in your section, how many people in your family? Your mother and your father,
Yeah, there was a sister, a half sister, and a half brother,
3 half,
Five.
3 half brothers,
and with it.
or half sister. Yeah, he's
I was
That's
the
okay.
only one.
from the first mother.
Right, so how many are we talking about?
We're talking about, let's see, 4 and then 5, 6, 7 people.
Okay, so actually, by the standards of those days, that was a small number of people. Many of the houses had 10 or 11 people, including the parents and the children. Like I think in the Kovaches there were 11.
Yeah,
Some
that
of
was
the
a
others,
big
yeah.
family.
School
Yeah.
house were big.
Yeah. Um, okay. So let me see. Did the when you weren't working, did you, and there were no picnics or anything, did the families get together as folks do?
Well, they live together as they do now.
I mean, no, I mean different families in the what was it called, Willow
Hickory Hill.
Hickory Hill. Did the different families in Hickory Hill get together?
Have picnics.
Oh yeah, they had picnics in the summertime, and each family brought whatever, and the women got together and decided what one should bring and what.
Okay, and on Sundays, occasionally get
Yeah.
together. Okay. Um, were you there when Kovac was killed?
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot his name.
Mike.
Mike. No,
No,
Frank.
Frank. Mike was the son. Mike was the brother of George and John. Frank Kovac.
The father, I heard him fall, and just right above where the started to go underground, there was a beam right across about that high, and he hit that one, and he was hollering until he hit the beam. After he hit the beam, he stayed there for a little while, and his body fell all the way down, and then they picked him up in bags.
Okay. Tell me what you remember. What caused that accident?
See, at first they had the powerhouse, and they switched the power from DC current to AC current. And that's where the engineer, when mine was working, when the power was being switched, he forgot himself. So instead of going down, he went up, and he got over into the dump, and of course, Frank Kovac was in a skip with boxes to take out, put over, and take in the incinerator and burn. And when he got up on top, he couldn't hold himself any longer, and that's when he fell out. Hit that beam, rolled over, fell down, and boxes and everything was all scattered. His body was scattered.
There was one other death later on. It was during the time when Joe Lillick was there. Joe Lillick.
Lennox?
Lillick. Joe Lillick. He was a motorman, and he said he was running his car, and there was a young man, a young miner, with a new lunchbox.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, tell me what you remember about that.
Yeah, the poor guy. The gates, they were at an angle, iron gates.
The chutes?
The chutes where they loaded the ore into the cars. And he was showing off his new lunchbox. He came over this way and he leaned, instead of leaning inside away from the chute, he leaned out that way and it caught his neck like that. And all it was, just a small, and his neck was cut, just hanging a little bit like that. And of course, somebody jumped off and stopped the motor and went inside and got the cot. Laid him there,
Stretcher.
wrapped him up in the blanket,
Right.
and took him out. Dead.
He was dead, right. Do you remember any other injuries or accidents when you were there?
And there was another one. That one was on the outside. That's when they ironed the rock. And he was a new loader operator. And I told him to go up the mountain and just right at the clearance to dump the 3/8 stone, because the DuPont company used to do blasting out on the surface. And instead of him just dumping there, and they called him over, and he was new, quite new on the loader, and it started to go a little too fast. Instead of putting his foot on the brake, and the throttle was on the right-hand side, and instead of pushing the left-hand side, he pushed the right-hand side, which is the gas, and he started going so fast, and he couldn't hold on. He toppled off one bench, hit that one, knocked the wheels off, the front wheels off, and then he rolled back down on the other one, and then the hind wheels was off, no wheels on the bottom. And the oil in the cylinders, it spilled over on him, and he was saturated with oil. And I went out, get him out. I had to slide around him, to pull his head out first and then his feet. And the police came in after, and they gave me help taking him out. And I said, hell, he was already dead. He was drowned in oil.
Is that what happened to him?
Yeah, well, he was killed by the shock going from one to the other.
Right.
But the oil spilled out, and that made him slippery.
Yeah. Any other injuries or deaths you can remember?
There may have some that would happen underground, but I don't remember, except a drowning. A fellow drowned. He was working in where the big boulders are coming out from underground that comes in a small area, and then there was rails, but about that far. But in the middle they had a double rail. That's where you generally walked on to put blasting powder on the end of the stick with a short fuse. Then you reached up, set it up in stones, the big boulders, break it up, and then it used to come down. And you drill those big boulders into little ones and put them in the chute.
Oops, let me step this. Okay, so let me see. You started to tell me you said someone drowned.
Yeah. Well, you see, they had what they call a grizzly, and the grizzly had a hole up where the broken ore, of course, the wall had scuffed off and it got mixed up with the ore. You had to break the big ones into little ones, and then they were pulled out from underneath, brought out to the end of the shaft, and it was brought up on surface. And the milling was done up on surface in the mill to separate the stone from the ore. And then it was taken on a conveyor, and electronic magnets turned and kept the ore in, and then it went on a little further where the fine ore mixed with the sand and the chunk was picked up later, further on. And then that was separated, fed into the mill. And then it was ground down to powder. And later on, they used to call what they say lump ore. And then that was used in open earth furnaces. Of course, that was, there was a bigger profit in that than the fine party.
Okay. Now, how did the man drown, though?
Oh, well, he was in this grizzly where the ore comes out from above through a small hole, and then there's rails in the thing there. Well, when he was working there, his foot slipped on, he fell through the grizzly and went down into the bottom, and then there's a wooden 4-inch nobody saw until after the motorman came through, and there's a body with his feet up in the air and his head below that, and he's held there, and the water is splashing all over. So well, he was probably dead when he got there, but of course, if there was any breathing done, it was with water. He drowned.
It's interesting, though, that first of all, there are seem to be very few injuries and deaths for the period of years that are covered, and there don't seem to be any injuries from blasting or cave-ins or anything like that.
Cave-ins and all, in my time, didn't happen. But an injury I had myself, but not from the loose that my father and I was real. It was right over the top of my head to come hit my shoulders, and I was standing on sort of a jagged rock, and this toe here, it landed on the knee and then the toe, but my rubber boots were cracked, and that's where the blood comes. And of course, the bones.
You told a story one time about you and your father having to dig yourself out.
That was a small item, but we finally got out of there easy, not too much trouble.
How did that happen?
It just popped.
You mean the timber?
No, not the timber, the solid roof. And every once in a while, the warm air hitting up against the ceiling, and it just popped. But many times while drilling, you can see little slivers falling off. You know, you can see it, the electric lamps. But before that, there was carbide lamps. And before that, they were lamps and cloth caps. No hard hats. And they used to have, it resembled a coffee pot or a teapot. It had a wick, and that used to smoke. That's the early miners. I still have a bunch of them in the house that we lived in, again, and my dad sold, and they're still there. I had an awful lot of them that I picked up as a kid from other mine houses, those lamps, and I put them in the cinder blocks under the porch. They're still there.
In the coal mines, of course, there are gases.
Yeah, they were gas.
Okay. Do you have the same? You don't have the same gases in the iron
No,
mine.
we didn't have no
Okay.
gas.
So the only thing you had to be concerned about
It's
is
smoke
getting
when
getting fresh
everybody
air.
blasted at a certain
Right,
time.
and getting fresh air in for breathing. Okay.
And there was, later on, we had fans that were opened up at a certain time of blast, blow the air out of the mine where nobody had worked, and then it leaked out to the surface. And then the fresh air was drawn in from the shaft out into the different levels.
But the injuries, there were a lot of injuries ranging from minor to having to go and have first aid or emergency room treatment.
All of
I
that.
remember you coming home with your chest all bandaged up where you were scraped by a car.
That was the chest and then this leg. And we were both on a loose ground when you tapped it and you felt the drum. Well, then you took that out. You drove wedges, several wedges, and you hammered it in with a sledgehammer until it dropped. And you always, before you went into the work as you was coming in, you always tapped to see if it was safe enough to walk.
Now, before you became the union boss, were you a driller?
What?
Were you a driller? Did you drill?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so you were paid on the
On the hourly basis.
but you were on incentive too then.
Yeah.
Okay, now once you became the shift boss,
Yeah.
were you still actually working in the
Oh,
mine?
yeah.
Okay, okay. So you still had the same income. Um,
I wouldn't pay by the company,
right.
being a union manager. I was paid by the union on a monthly basis. But it wasn't very much.
Okay. How often did well, in terms of the union hierarchy, I'm not familiar with that. I presume they probably had a New York office.
Yeah.
Okay. How often did they come out to get?
On a monthly basis.
Okay.
We had a union meeting there. Some came, some didn't. And they had a problem, and it was discussed and how best to resolve the problem.
Did you ever have any problems with the guys from the
Company?
from the National Union?
No.
Okay.
Uh, You're on surface. All they had to do was cut the timber, made lumber, and sold it, push the dirt back, and mine the iron. And they still do it today. And they're mining it so that they're below sea level. And they're still going at it.
I don't know, you were hired as a consultant at one time after you retired, and you went back.
That was for a short time.
Yeah, that was probably around the area.
Okay. Okay.
But probably the mine would work if the railroad didn't absorb the high fee of transportation. That took away the biggest portion of the profit. And then, of course, the insurance costs.
And I understand a lot of the steel companies that were buying you were shutting down.
Yes,
The
yeah.
Japanese and South Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were getting.
So,
And then, of course, you're getting the hematite from the central part of the United States.
when you retired, did you get retirement benefits? No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he also has emphysema and silicosis.
Well, I was going to get to that. Now, your dad worked in the coal mine and the iron mine. Did he ever develop black lung in the coal mine?
No, not. He probably had a portion of it in his lungs, but he never coughed very much of anything. Like normal portion, gets up in the morning and he hacks, empties out his mouth, and goes on about his business.
Okay, now when you were in the mine in 37, was that wet drilling or dry?
No, that was already wet because the unions made the companies provide water, and the drilling machines were built up, engineered rather, to take the water and still spin the rifle bars, what they call it.
Did you ever dry drill?
Very little, very little.
Okay.
And of course, it was set up so that the air was coming in as you worked either way down and then later coming back up to the top of the ore. But they had fans there. The union forced the company to provide fans with fresh air.
Did you develop silicosis? Did you get silicosis?
Very little. I
Okay.
probably still have it. It doesn't bother me. Not that, the smoking is what doesn't.
Well, that's emphysema. I think most of the silicosis came from the dry drill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, see, like, my wife's father, he died of shortness of breath because his lungs was full of dust. But they had their machines at that time. The drill had to go and rotate it, but you rotated it over 2/3, and then it kept on going. Then you changed a short drill, you put a longer drill until it was about 7 feet high. But then in those days they were drilling up. In my day, they were drilling out that way, longer holes, and of course they supplied water.
Okay.
And then the rifle ball used to spin and it wasn't solid steel. You had a string of bits, big ones, smaller, till the last one. But it was much easier and it was clear.
You mentioned earlier that your wife said she would have preferred you at home on Sunday. Did you have to spend union time on Sundays?
That's when it was done.
Those would be to discuss disagreements. How often did you get these kinds of things you had to spend time on?
Well, we had monthly meetings,
Right.
and that's when different people would bring up
Grievances.
their own problems. And then if it needed attention, following day, it was resolved.
What, generally speaking, how many of the grievances would you say were justified? 10%, 90%?
Oh, I would say around 85%, because we had our delegate, he was a shrewdy, and he would get the companies tangled up so that they agreed, and very seldom they disagreed. Because at that time, he would say, "Do you want to open up the mine tomorrow?" And he said, "Well, you get your goddamn ass going and listen to what's going on." He was a shrewdy, sharp, and he wasn't afraid.
Now, who would he say that to?
The company official.
The company official. So, in other words, he was prepared to shut things down.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was the only way you were able to resolve your grievances.
Now, back in going actually ahead to the late 50s, when Shamoon was there, one person told me, which I would hope that you would remember, was that the union came in when the drills went to carbide, and the men were making incentive pay, and the company wanted to modify the pay because with the carbide bits they were able to go a lot deeper, and therefore the company didn't want to pay as much because they were drilling faster with the carbide. And according to this person, the union was not willing to compromise, and that's when it was shut down. Do you remember this?
Well, if it was shut down, it wouldn't shut down very long, because you either mined or you didn't mine.
Okay.
Because people would go to work, and that's the only hammer that you had.
Well, this story supposedly took place around the late 50s, which was around the time it was closing. It's possible.
I wouldn't remember that
Okay.
to the day.
Well, that was the time that already, management, and that's when you had the sugar put in your gas tanks.
I don't quite remember it to the month of the day.
Well, let me ask you this: as a shift foreman, he was also a union official. Was he considered management?
There was a time when he was out of the union,
wife says, look, he said, you're either gonna live with me or you're gonna live with the union. You know,
Okay.
you take your choice.
So you went to the union, of course.
Well, not as much, but
Well, like that.
things were beginning to settle and they were beginning to agree.
Like that Marine major. His child was getting heart surgery. You heard about that one? And he said the Marines are his other family. And he. So okay, so you went. So obviously you went to your wife to create harmony in the family.
And also, he became part of management, and that's why when you retired, you never got any benefits.
I didn't get no benefits from the union section of business, but I had the delegate do the biggest portion of settling problems. And later on, it got so that the company didn't argue and agreed that if they wanted to make money, you can't do it if you don't mind.
So let me ask you this then. When you had the monthly meeting, the delegate was there from New York. So what was your role as local president to keep things under control during the month before these meetings?
Well, see, people with a problem, they would discuss it at the union meeting, and it was brought to the delegate's attention.
Okay.
And then he called the meeting with the company to resolve.
Okay. Okay. Now, what position did you have when you were with management after you dropped out of the union?
It didn't last very long because at that time, Nova Scotia,
It's a different question.
When your wife said either it's the union or me, you chose to stay with your wife. Okay, and then shortly afterwards, management offered you a. Is that the way it worked? Management offered
I
him
think it was management offering him a job.
a job.
Yeah.
Okay, so management. Okay, and during this time, the other men, because you were management, they threw sugar in the gas tank.
oh,
That was during a strike.
that was during the strike. Sons,
Do you remember roughly when that would have been?
That would have been, we had a 1957 Mercury, black and white, and it was a couple of years old, so probably around the 59 strike.
Okay, and that's the same one that was probably caused by what I referred to earlier. Okay, so they got angry at you and put sugar in your tank because they had to let management know how they feel, and you were the closest target, I guess.
This was at the deliberations that they were having. We had unions out picketing right in front of the Mount Hope office.
yeah.
And everybody was in the office having a meeting. And that's when they put sugar in the tanks of management.
Okay, did the company reimburse you for the
Yes, they
expenses?
came. See, I spotted sugar on the ground, see, and I said, ooh, don't start the car. And all of the cars had sugar in it, and none of them started, and we called the mechanics to come, take the tanks off, turn them out, bleed them out, and then fill them out, wash them out, and then set them back in, and the company paid.
Okay, now, did the other, when you had this was a strike of the miners, did the other trades support the picket line in those days?
If they did, the union did that, the international. The
Others-
international kept guys that were in trouble because you had to feed them.
Okay.
Otherwise, they'd say, well, I can't do nothing else, I can't find a job anywhere else.
Okay. With regard to the machinists and the millwrights and the loaders, the pickers, when you went on strike, did they stop working?
Oh, yeah.
They did.
Everybody.
Everyone shut, so it was all shut down.
Yeah.
Okay. Gee, there was another question, Jay. Oh, at the time you were management, did they try to have you attend a specific church?
Specific what?
Some again have told me, and it may be at a much earlier time, it may have gone back to the 20s, that the company, this probably goes back to before Shamoon, because Shamoon wouldn't require people to attend the Methodist church since they weren't Methodist. But apparently before Shamoon bought the mine, the former owners tried to make their managers become Methodists. Did you ever hear anything about that?
That I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Vaguely, there may have been something because you see, the Methodists weren't around in Mount Hope. That it was known. They had a small church, and it's still standing there, but it's all rotted.
Right.
The
Across
people,
from the
the
fashion.
older people had died off, and the younger people had moved away. So the church it
Right.
rotted apart,
Okay.
and it was right next to our church. Remember?
No, it was right across the street from where we lived, the fish house.
Well, that was over across the street, way back in.
Right, right.
Were you living in the company house? I would have thought that you predated, postdated.
Well, I lived in the fish house after.
You lived in the face house? Oh, when was that?
From about 54, about 53 to 65.
See, we lived in the company houses on the lake,
Right.
and I asked them to do a little work because the family was getting bigger, and I needed more room, so I told them to put a dormer on both sides, both families, bigger dormers, on the roof, because it was a lean-to house,
Okay.
and so I
Like
told
old
them to
salt box.
put a dormer on both sides.
We had running water, my father put in, but we did not have a toilet. We had an outhouse. We had well water that we drank, and my father put in plumbing where we would have a sink in the kitchen where
Or that.
water from the lake. And the rent for those houses was what, $6 or $7 a month
About $7.
with free electricity.
Yeah.
And
But it was a low voltage.
See, I didn't ask you about that because I assumed, frankly, that you were younger and wouldn't know.
I was born in 45, so,
Well, I have all kinds of additional questions that.
I have, you see, that's the house that I was taken to when I was born. It was, right on Mount Hope Pond. There were a
Okay.
cluster of them. And then when we moved to the Face House, of course, we had toilets and, the
Is that because you were management that you were able to
Well-
live in the fish house?
Well, it so happened that they were going to remodel our house, which was a double house. They were going to remodel both sides. But at that time, the lad that was, he was working in the office, one of the bigger officials, he moved out. So they said, well, instead of doing that, you move in the fish house.
Okay. Have you ever heard of John Kish?
Who?
John Kish.
John Kish's name is vague.
His name was given to me by Joe Melko, and I understand John Kish was a miner, but he lived in the fish house at one point. I haven't gotten a hold of him yet.
Kish, I don't remember that name at
Okay.
all involved in the
No,
fish house.
I always remember the people going back to
Well,
the late,
Rebecca-
no, it was Wellingtons
Well, Wellingtons lived there and then they
and
moved out.
Wrights. Then the
And,
Bedinis, and then we moved in after the Bedinis. And then after the Wrights moved out, the Bruzos moved in.
Yeah.
And the Bruzos lived there until the end of, occupation of the house.
So what are you, first, let me have your name, please.
Gail.
Gail?
Since Harris.
Harris. Okay. recollections?
About 3 or 4. I remember standing in our little kitchen looking, at like the level of my parents, and recollections of my father coming home and sitting in a rocker on his lap, babbling to him.
Okay, could you describe the house and the property?
The house.
She
Oh,
knows
I
that.
know that house. You had a little pantry, summer kitchen. You had a kitchen that had a kerosene stove, which was our main source of heat. Then we had a living room.
Pardon me, when you say a stove, you mean a potbelly?
Not a potbelly, it was a
It was a
kerosene
frame
stove.
and had two
You had an
burners.
oven. You
Oh,
had
it was a
3
cooking,
or 4.
a kerosene cooking stove?
Yes. And that was our
Okay.
main source of heat.
Okay,
And, because in the winter time, the plumbing to the lake was shut off because there was no heat source there, the pipes would freeze.
right.
So all of our bath water had to be heated and,
Two
Okay.
furnaces with the summer.
no, not at that time. Not in that
Okay,
house.
so you had the kitchen, how many bedrooms?
2 bedrooms,
That seems to be the standard from there. And you had a living room?
a living room, right?
Okay. And how did you get your water?
From buckets and the well water. And then when when it thawed out, we would have tap water, running water in the sink.
Okay.
Down below, they had what they call a cistern. And at that time, they used to pump the cistern into the house.
You're talking about the Face House, I'm talking about the house up by the pond.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, so you had,
That water was contaminated.
Which water? The pond water?
Yeah, because the ore ran up alongside of off the main road, out in the back. That's where they had an old shaft there back in the early 1800s, and that went down in there, and then that filled up during the rainy season, and it used to overflow. And it used to run right alongside of the shaft, and it used to run across the lake. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but your sister does, she used to walk across it. But then you could see where the lining was out alongside where the mule trains used to take the ore out. Well, neither do I remember seeing the mule train, but you could see the towpath. And you could see where the gears are in the concrete.
That's the old well.
uh-huh,
There's wheels in the concrete that used to turn the baffles blowing the air into the furnace. And I know where the furnace is today,
okay,
where it was today. And the stone walls came from that furnace.
okay.
Well, that's not the same one, but it was similar to this one. That's not that's not the.
We're talking about the pump house.
There's another furnace up in, up towards Booton, up the back road.
Okay.
That's an outhouse.
Yep, now I'm gonna show your daughter a picture, I keep forgetting the name, Willow Hill? Hickory Hill. This is a picture of her property at Hickory Hill.
Maybe my father might remember some of these people.
Okay. These pictures were given to me by Barbara Kovach Ackerson, the sister of George and John Ackerson. And this is a picture of her and kids as they dressed then. The clothes are a little different. And here's a picture. They had a cow, and they had to put together hay for the cow. And they told me how they had a layer of pears and a layer of apples, and that was the haystack to feed the cow.
Well, I can tell you that that's a Chevrolet car.
So,
Remember that?
So you attended local school then?
I went to Sacred Heart School in Dover, and then I
Okay.
went to Morris Hills Regional.
Yeah, and the haystack, I've slept in that haystack there many a night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had a couple of layers of bed sheets, and then we had the pillows, and then you had a light cover. In the nighttime, you'd pull it over.
Now, you, at that point, you had electricity in the house?
We always had electricity.
We always had
We always had electricity.
It
Free
was
electricity.
low voltage.
Right.
Okay.
My father put the water supply from the lake, you know, but, and the rent, as I say, was $7 a month.
Okay.
Beige house, how much was that? Do you remember, was that like 15?
I think that was about $15 a month.
Okay.
Yeah, with free electricity.
Okay. That sounds like a pretty good deal.
It was.
Okay, now as you were growing up, in the mornings, of course, your father would go off to work. Do you remember your grandfather?
No.
Okay. So what time did you go off to work? When you were on the day shift?
We went underground 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So he left the house, my mother would get up and fix him his lunch. He would leave the house at about sometimes 5:30, as early as 5:30.
Why that early? If you had to be there at 7, why did you leave as early as 5:30? How big a walk was it?
Well, we lived right close.
Oh,
Close.
you drove. Okay.
The company house.
But he still
Okay.
drove. I think at that time, just getting everything ready for the day.
Okay. Now, did you have any chores before you went to school?
No.
Okay. And,
No, her mother took care of her and me. She was an early bird.
okay, when you came home from school, did you have chores?
Just making sure everything was ready for supper sometimes.
Okay. Now, who took
And
care?
You helped with the dishes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you had chickens.
Oh,
You
yeah.
had one cow.
No, we had
No, not
chickens
there.
and turkeys.
Chickens and turkeys.
You know, when turkeys were an experiment then, we just did one season.
Okay. You had a garden.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there was a garden.
Okay.
Everybody had
you
a
had a
garden.
cow.
No,
Okay. Where did you get your milk?
the store.
From the store. Now, can you remember back during the 30s, the old Depression? Do you remember, how did you all manage at that point? In the 30s, the mine was closed
It was
for a lot of
before
it.
my time.
Okay. You were born,
45.
okay.
I remember going to work at the rib mill.
That was at the age of 14. He would have to take his bicycle or a bus.
Well,
Tell him the wages. You know.
Where did you work? A ribbon mill?
There's a ribbon mill right
ribbon
here in
mill.
Dover.
Okay.
That was the
Right
old
here in Park.
spit.
And Barbara Kovach worked there also.
Yeah, she worked there.
Okay.
Yeah, for a short time. But
See, it
then
took
after she went to Butler and she became a postmaster in Butler.
Okay, now you took a bicycle.
Well, I used to take the bicycle to work. And I'll
Okay.
never forget.
How was your pay there compared with your pay for working at Warren Pipe and Foundry?
That was $5 a week
Where, at the Button,
at the ribbon
the
mill.
ribbon place, $5 a week?
He was 14
And
and a half.
then they wanted me to work Saturday. Saturdays I worked. I didn't mind it. But then when I had to take the bicycle to work, when it was getting colder, it got so that the roads were slippery, you couldn't walk, let alone ride a bicycle. So I didn't go to work. So he said, well, why didn't you take the bus? I said, well, it would take me 20 cents to get to Dover, and then another dime to get to the ribbon mill. So that was 70 cents. And heck, it only makes 50 cents. So I'd be working for you for nothing.
Oh,
It would
my.
cost me money to work for you. He said, "You're too goddamn smart." I said, "No, not smart. It's simple.
Right.
Simple. Simple arithmetic. Figure it out."
How long?
He says, "I don't need you no more." I said, "Well, you go to hell now."
How long? So how long were you working at the ribbon?
Oh, that I couldn't tell you. It was quite some time because see, the mines were shut down. That was the only income that was coming in. And of course, I didn't spend a nickel for candy, so everything went home.
Okay, so the mines were shut down at that time. Okay, he was taken out of school at 14, went for half of his freshman year, and went into support the family at that time. And other things he did after that, I think he went into CC camps.
Yeah, it was the CC's.
FDR, civilian conservationists. Okay. In terms of feeding the family during that time, you had the garden.
Oh, yeah.
You had the
yeah.
chickens for eggs.
Chicken.
Do you remember if there was bartering with the people who had cows?
Yeah, we had milk brought to them in pails. And then you dump the pail into your own pail.
And if somebody slaughtered a pig or something, how did you work that out?
Well, you either bought the front, the back, or the ribs, or the shoulders.
How did it work though during the Depression when there wasn't much money? Did you get part of the pig and give them vegetables or other things that you had?
No, you had to save enough money to live on. And you had your chicken, you had your, we didn't have pigs, we never ate pigs. That was against the Bible.
What religion are you?
Russian.
Basically, we're Roman Catholic now, but he was Greek Orthodox, but his stepmom was a fundamentalist Baptist or something.
Yeah.
Okay, Baptists don't eat pork.
Whatever religion, she spoke out.
Up to now, I thought it was just Jews and, pardon the expression, Muslims.
No, this was something.
We don't talk too much about
something
Muslims.
about the hoofed animal that they.
Okay. Jewish dietary laws, and of course the Muslims were initially from Ishmael and Abraham. And if Abraham didn't have the concubine, we wouldn't have all these problems in the world today, probably. But God told what was her name, Hagar, to go forth, and she'd have a great nation, and they've been fighting ever since.
You couldn't eat anything that had
it had to have a split
Yeah.
hoof and chew its cud.
Yeah.
And the only animals that had split hooves and chewed their cuds were domestic animals. They weren't carnivorous. They weren't hunters. So you have sheep, you have cows, you have. I'm not sure if
You had
llamas.
deer, the deer.
Yeah, actually, yes, deer are hoofed animals, and they also chew a cud, and other similar things. But for example, a horse doesn't have a split hoof, a camel doesn't have, and of course none of the dogs or others that other cultures eat. So, okay, now, when you were living on the plantation, was it still called a plantation then?
No.
Okay. What did you do when you came home from school? You did homework, I assume.
Did homework.
And you helped your mom. What did you do in your spare time?
Argue with her sister.
Argued with my sister, go out with my friends, hang out with my as soon as I could drive, they let me have the car.
Okay.
So,
Her mother taught them strict how to take care of themselves because she was a good woman and
on Saturdays, ever since I could remember, since about 8 or 9, they would give me money to take the bus into Dover, and I would have tap dancing lessons. And either my father would pick me up, or I'd take the bus back home. So,
Okay.
but they had an option to go to college, both of them. The oldest one, he says, I didn't do well in grammar school, I didn't do well in high school, and she said, you'd be spending your money for nothing to send me to college because I'll be too dumb to go there.
Mhm.
So she didn't go, but she had all of the privileges of going.
And my sister's 7 years older than I am. So
Right.
there's two of us. So what they spent for me in college, they gave her in kind, cash.
Okay. Now, when did you? So let me see. You were in the Fesh house until what year?
Until 65. I was a sophomore in college.
And then you moved here. Oh, okay. Okay. Is there anything else you can remember from those days?
You know, taking the bus into Dover, we wanted to go to the movies on Saturdays and stuff. We were a lot more independent. You know, I lived in Chatham, and I laughed when my kids were going to schools there. My son used to walk, and everybody used to walk. Nowadays, everybody's driven. You know, Chatham is a small town, and you don't, there's the nearest school is much less than 2 miles. But you know, the parents take care of the kids every place. Now with computers, you don't see them playing anymore. But we used to play a lot outside. You know, hide and go seek, tag.
Did the children of employees socialize with the children of management at all?
There weren't that many.
Well,
Yeah,
there was-
yeah. We all
Well,
played together.
Riddell's had, I think, 2 daughters. Riddell. Well, they lived in the big house there with big walls around it. You know where the store is? Well, you went down, and then on the left-hand side, there was a stone wall, and a big house. That was Riddell. He was the mine captain.
No,
and
the earliest I remember are the Woodruffs. Woodruffs and then Sousa.
Okay, I've seen the name Riddell in newspaper clippings.
I don't remember that house. I remember the Woodruffs living in that house. That was the,
Woodruff's lived across the street from us.
no, the big house that Sousa lived in. Woodruffs lived in there before Sousa.
That I assume Sousa lived in a single-family house.
Yeah, it was a large house because the Woodruffs had many children, and it stood alone. It was on the other side of the railroad track, as a matter of fact. The railroad track ran right next to it. And it was a big stone wall with a lot of property, and it was an older, you know, older, non-pretentious home.
I may have a picture of one like it. May have a picture. These are all the people I've met with. Here we go. Here start the pictures. Let's see if I can find one in the house. These are pictures from photographs that I've scanned. This one on top is one similar to what you showed me.
Yeah, there were 3 of them that my father had put together.
Looking for the picture of the. I'll show you all of these. Get to that one on the house though. These are all my new scanner.
Oh, that's the grinder in the
Yeah.
mill.
Okay, here we go. This was taken from a very old picture. Let me show you Dad.
No, these are just the.
See that picture there?
This one?
Yeah.
That's amazing. It looks like my house in Chatham.
Oh, this is a later picture. This is a later picture. You have a pile of ore that was set up there because they didn't take it to the steel mill. It was stocked. And this was the scalping.
I remember these were across the street from where we lived, in the Face House.
So which houses were these in? One looks like a multiple thing.
Yeah, these are 2 family houses. This was a single here. That was the only single house on the block. You had a house like this, single house, and then this was a double. You had Longs living there, and
So how many lived in the house on top?
two families.
Okay, that looks like a single house.
That's mine. Chatham.
Oh.
A little different, okay.
Okay.
Two families, one family, two families,
Yeah, I see that.
two families, and two families.
Uh-huh.
So you see two families, two families, two families, one family, two families. You have 5 houses on one side of the street.
Well, originally
doubles.
this was one family house.
Okay. Now,
That
here,
was the old face house.
okay.
No, that's not the old Fish house. No, that's not the old Fish house. Look, you've got the dormers up here.
Yeah.
Okay, Fish house doesn't have dormers. This is either where Booker James lived, or this is where Buckingham's and Sands. But that's the house, the kind of house that we're right across the street from where we were in the Fish house. This is Shep Black's old house, and then this is where the Longs lived, and this is where what's the face?
Okay, now, this is a picture Johnny George gave me this morning. It's the entrance to Mount Hope, New Jersey. Mount Hope, he has no idea when that was taken. It's a photo by Price, Dover.
This looks like the.
Prices. Let's see. Yes, this is over the railroad, switched off and it ended out here. And this was the farm. This is an old photo.
Well, I'm going to show you another old one.
Yeah.
This photo. This is a copy of a photo, and it's dated 1905.
Oh, this here is the tunnel, and where it went into the hill. Later, there's another. This had caved in, and then after later on, there was a hoist house up on the side of the hill, and it went down under here.
Uh-huh.
And Picatinny Arsenal went from the back side, and it dug the side of the mountain. And at that time, I happened to go through there, and they had a front end loader, and they was getting the good soil out of there. And I told them, I said, if you go over to the left, you're going to hit the mine shaft, because on the top of the hill is where the hoist house used to be, and they used to go down in at the bottom of the ore vein.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, boy, good thing you told us, because we're not going to take any more out of there.
Uh-huh.
But Mount Hope, I don't know whether they got any benefit to Picatinny Arsenal, because that's where they were going.
Right.
And, you know, Picatinny had a big bog swamp,
Uh-huh.
and it went all the way out to Route 46, all up to Newton and that way.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Huh?
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of a mucking machine. These are from Ken Kramer. In their copies.
Yeah. Well, this is a big one. See, this bucket swung over the top and it's landed in a conveyor. And they would have 2 cars. There would be an empty car there, and the conveyor belt would fill the car ahead of it. And then as they were taking that car out, then they would pull this one out so that they would dump while they were taking the ore out to the
Uh-huh.
entrance.
Okay, here's,
But you can't make out who the guy was behind.
now,
But he was wearing a carbide lamp. He was wearing an electric lamp.
okay, here's an overhead.
Shush, 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 shush.
And hill. And later, where this emptied out into the Rockaway River, I was given a job to take purifying samples. Water had to be purified before it emptied into the Rockaway River.
This is a picture of the house up by the pond. They're the ones with, that wasn't in our house, but it was one of what they were doing.
Oh,
They
okay.
had no running water in the outhouses. My mother and my sister.
I was told that I've read in the newspapers that the vertical shaft was lined with concrete.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would this have been one of those vertical risers?
No, this was a, what they call, this was going up into this iron stope. See, there's a ladder, and
Oh, this would have been a riser then just to go to
Yeah.
another level.
you had to go
Okay.
in. Well, see, they broke in, say, like, below there, and then when they filled that up, they kept on going up, and what you see there is a cable that went down below where the bucket used to go. But then I had, you see, because this was dangerous, I had this ladder moved over here, and then another ladder that the bucket used to go up and down.
And what did the bucket do?
Well, the bucket brought the powder, the fuses,
Okay.
up
Oh,
into
that.
the opening into the ore body.
So all the blasting material was just transferred on a bucket?
No. That was pulled out down below in cars. See, this is only to get up into the ore body.
Oh,
And the pipe
okay.
that you saw up there was air blowing, fresh air, the outside, the opening where
Okay.
the fans were blowing the air into the mine.
Okay. Then
You
we'll
got-
go to your pictures afterwards.
Well, I'm just going through.
Okay,
these are my
here's
mother's.
a slusher. I have a picture here of some
Yeah,
guys.
The slusher had, it had, that's a motor on the side there, and it had two drums. One was pulling in, and the other one was pulling it back. A
Now-
bucket that was pulling the ore into a pocket.
Okay, now I'm a little confused between the slusher and the mucking machine.
Yeah.
What is
The
the
muck-
difference
the
between
mucket-
slush and muck?
The mucker was riding on a track
Okay,
into the ore body, and the slusher was much faster, and it was moved from, without laying a track, and it brought the ore out of pockets, different
Okay.
pockets, and it brought it out into a pocket, and then it was mined out.
this is Charlie Penzenik, tape 2, side 1. Supposedly one's named Art and the other is named John. Here's another one. This looks like it's the workbench. It's at the 1,700 foot level. You may even be in some of these pictures.
This is in the shop. That's in the drill shop.
That 1,700 foot level is the drill shop?
Down 17.
Okay, I'm repeating some of this for the tape.
It only went down to the 2,100 level. And from the 2,100 foot level, I have a picture somewhere where it showed where the 2,100 level was going to Hibernia. And it stopped in 1974. And it showed exactly where the stop was and where
because at Morristown Library yesterday, there was an archivist. An archivist is a woman who goes, spends time looking through archives. She can be a man too, but in this case a woman. She led me to believe that there were other people who have done this, and my understanding is that no one has gone to the folks who lived and worked at Mount Hope. So, to your recollection, that's my premise is correct.
So I just threw it out. There was a meeting back in the early '90s.
This is the
that
grinding
there were
mill.
people that worked for the mine,
Right.
from a historical
Okay,
society.
Dave Bogart.
I don't know.
He was the person. Right.
Just-
A reunion.
Right, I think it lasted 2 years or something. It was like it was a letter going through drawers.
But you've never been interviewed like this.
We haven't, no.
Okay.
He never went to any of the reunions too, so.
Okay.
See, this is an old grinding machine where it took, she doesn't know that. The grinding machine, it took all of the iron particles down to the lower particles.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
then after that, it was relayed to several magnets,
The Davenport process.
to draw out all of the
Magnetite.
magnetite ore.
Right.
Whatever was in the hematite was dumped over into the basin where you have a picture showing where.
Right. And you had granite in there also.
Yeah. But then, see, after it passed through there, it went through several magnetic separators. And of course, the conveyor went from one dumped into the other until it went into the finest.
And then it was milled to a powder.
The finer
Right.
particles.
Okay. You probably recognize that picture.
Just for your information.
Oh, yeah. Just a second, Charlie.
The
This-
picture that we gave, the panorama,
Right.
okay, this is facing, panorama is facing this way. This is the new shaft.
You Leonard.
The old shaft was out here. Hickory Hill was right here in this area.
The old one was an incline shaft, and the new one was
The
a vertical.
vertical.
And that was done by New York Underpinning,
Okay.
done the excavating and concreting.
Okay. From what you can both recall, what was the greatest number of people, families now, who lived in the community there?
Somewhere we had a picture of the one section of Hickory Hill, and then there was another section that was called Birdhouse Garden, and then there was another section behind that. There was 3 sections of families, 4 sections of families that
Let me
worked
see,
in the
let
mine.
me
And
count.
about how many houses?
Let me count my biggest recollection.
Okay.
Hickory Hill was non-existent at this time. Starting out at the pond, we have Hollis's and Skidlicks. We have ours and Trinani's. We have Machola and Solis's. We have Shedlacks and Simons.
Signs.
So there were 4
Well, Simons was the later.
Yes, there were 4 at the lake. And going down to Birdhouse Gardens, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly a 5th, double houses. Then we go to the Faish, the hill with the Faish house. Then you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Faish house, so 6 on that hill. And then you had Sousa's. So you had 4, 5, that's on 15, 16 with the Faish house, and 17 with Sousa's.
Okay, but some of these were double. Right?
Most of them were double. There's only 1,
So you had
2.
about the equivalent
There's
of.
only 2 single houses.
Okay, so you had about 28 families, and then 2, so about 30 families. So about, and if each of the houses had probably an average of 8 or 9 people. Some had 11, some had fewer, like your own.
No, this is back in the 50s now. This is
Okay.
smaller
far as you know, were there additional houses earlier that were no longer being occupied?
No, that's my recollection of what we had there.
Okay.
Hickory Hill was gone.
Okay.
It was non-existent.
Now, there was one group of houses that was demolished following the explosion of 1926. I don't know how many houses were demolished. That's where the Kovacs lived. Up
Yeah,
near Pickett, they said they were a quarter of a mile from Picatinny Arsenal.
yeah. No, it wasn't Picatinny, it was the Navy.
The Navy?
The
Okay.
Navy exploded.
Okay,
Lightning hit one of the powerhouses.
right. So they said they were about a quarter of a mile from that.
This is
The
the
hoist.
hoist house.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
there they had that. And that building is still in use now.
Yeah.
It's owned by some kind of a,
Well, it went from Hailcrest to the Swedish firm, or the Norwegian firm, and then to a Swedish firm. And Ken Kramer tells me that he's still on the payroll there. Ken Kramer goes once a week, and he starts up the motors every week.
yeah.
And the people there who still
Well,
they
if
own
the motors, there was a powerhouse, which is owned by one company. The hoist house is owned by one other company, but they use the hoist. There was two hoists in traveled on beams up overground, and there's different companies that rent them.
Well, apparently the company that wants to do the electrical, the pump storage project, of course, still owns the mine, and from what Ken tells me, they are still hopeful that as Nova Scotia runs out, as Michigan plays out, they are hopeful that the federal government is gonna come in and ask to have the mine opened, and the federal government will tell Rockaway Township that it has to be able to open it, because Rockaway has those ordinances now. But they believe, the feeling is, and perhaps you can confirm this, that I can say, at the risk of a pun, there's tons of magnetite still down there.
There is, but there's also a tunnel that's halfway over into Hibernia. And Hibernia had a higher, wider body of ore. That's altogether a difference. And there's a fall that cuts out. You can see where the mountain comes down, and the mountain from this side, and that's the fall.
Okay.
You can see it where you know that it's named a fall, and that's it. And you can see it by eye.
Oh, okay.
And,
But apparently there's no question that there's a lot of ore down there.
oh yes.
It's just a question of bringing it up. Here,
Well, you know, Washington guarded and had soldiers guarding this area because of the ore bodies.
right.
There's many mines.
Okay, those are overhead pictures again.
Yeah,
And
this is where they exported lump ore and concentrate. The concentrate is here, and then the waste is there. And you can't make out who the guy is walking down.
here's a picture of a Granby car. I understand named after the company that made it.
Yeah, yeah. There's another thing that I had built, where they dumped this car, and they had there was an air lever that threw a lock onto the back end of the car, and then it was a piston to lift the car up, and the end here hit this big timber that was backed up against the wall, and that cleaned the car up. You didn't have to stop and blow the air and clean the cars out, because what you were doing is bringing back the ore back and forth. And you wound up, there was no ore to bring back.
Okay, now let's see if you recognize this. This is again, it's scanned, but it's printed from a
That's the
printer
horse.
on HP paper. Shows you how did they come out?
I know, my daughter's a
Okay.
photographer,
That's the
she does all
worst.
this,
Okay,
she does all our.
do you
work.
recognize that man? He knows,
It
he knows,
certainly is not me.
Ken Kramer,
That's Ken Kramer?
yep.
No, Kramer was an electrician.
That's not what he told me. He told me he was the mine superintendent.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He loaded you up there.
We'll leave it at that. This was the cover of a book on mine gases, but there were no mine gases on it from the article, were there?
The only gases that were there was when they made the blast, and then right after the miners came back out, they opened up the doors, closed the doors, and opened up the fresh doors and blew the gases out, the smoke.
Right. And these are some pictures of the loading operation, the freight cars.
What was this, this was taken in '84, obviously.
That's a scan of the original.
Right, but I mean, on the dates on the bottom.
Okay.
He could have been a superintendent after, you know, I don't know how old he is.
This,
He's up there also, but he's still working for them, so maybe he was hired.
It's my father and his use, his car and his dog.
Oh my.
this picture here,
Oh my.
that
Yeah.
picture there shows the Euclid dumping rock into the car.
I assume this would have been the 70s. Yeah.
'70s.
Yeah, that's where they shipped the ore, I mean, not the ore, but the stone, and they had a mechanism there that lift the track up ahead of, and the stone, which was called two and a half size.
You let's go back to the '60s.
And then
Oh, okay.
that raised it up, and that laid a solid layer of rock, and the tracks didn't shift.
Oh, okay. Here's another overhead picture.
That's the outside. And that shows the whole thing.
And I live on the very edge of White Meadow Lake. In other words, across the street from me on the last houses in White Meadow Lake, which have as their backyard Rockaway Fishing and Hunting Club, and then beyond that is what we call Lake Shimon, which I guess is Mount Hope Ponds.
No,
That's Beaver Dam.
Oh,
that was,
okay.
this is the shows where,
Was it Mill
They
Pond
had-
maybe? Mill Pond, perhaps?
no,
It's
that
always
was the
been
mill
Beaver
pond.
Dam.
Dam?
Mount Hope Pond had 13 springs feeding it
That's
all
up
the
on
way
the
up.
hill going toward Picatinny. It's
Okay.
used by Rockaway Township for, recreation. Swimming
Okay.
and Beaver
Okay. So we always call it Lake Shimon.
Dam. Yeah, it's Beaver Dam.
Okay,
That's
now,
what we always
here's
call
a
it.
picture, this is from a newspaper clipping of the old herd mine
The herd mine
in Wharton.
Yeah, that's in Wharton. Yeah, that's in Wharton.
And you also
Uh,
remember Scrub Oaks.
there's-
His father used to
There's another mine called
Scrub Oaks.
Scrub Oaks, and then later called Allen Wood. The same
Okay.
mine. The only thing is
Okay.
that the Allen Wood mine was sunk down deeper by
Now,
a different company.
here's a picture which I can't figure out. It's at the 2,500 foot level. I understand there was a crusher here and a lot of people in suits, in business suits. Now, I understand the mine inspectors did not wear business suits. Do you have any idea what that might have been?
But this,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a crusher, but it went down to 2,500.
Oh, where was that?
That was either 2,100, and that was the latest one because they never put a crusher there. The mine shut down before they.
Okay. Any idea who those people in the business suits might have been?
It's pretty hard to determine because they had people from Pittsburgh. They had people from Michigan, Ishpeming,
Right.
and they lived in our house
Mm-hmm.
later for, I think 28 months.
Okay, now, this is, I guess, a riser. I see pegs on the side of the
Oh, that's the pins, yeah.
pins.
Yeah, no. See, there, this lad, whoever he is, he's coming up and he's climbing up on those pins. And they were 1 foot apart, like this here. And of course, you held on to the pins, not the pipe. He held on to the pipe in order to get the picture.
Oh, okay. Hey.
And Christie's were the ones from Ishpeming who stayed with us until their house was ready. Harold Christie.
Now, was this a riser?
A raise.
This was a
That's
raise.
called a raise.
Okay, to get to another level.
R-A-I-S-E.
Okay, and here's a shrink stub.
Yeah.
Okay, now, is
That's,
this
that's where I broke
is this
my
the
leg
exact
over
same
here.
thing that I have that you were showing me? Or is it
No,
different?
this is Hickory Hill, but without the houses. The mill and the,
I've shared
old
there.
office. Here's the old houses. Yeah, they were 3 pictures that my father put together.
Okay, is that the same thing?
It's the same thing.
Okay, so I don't need to take it.
This shrink stove was back in the 1800s. They never done any work like that because there, when we done shrink stoping, you set up a column bar and it had an arm on it, and where you set your machine there and you done your drilling. But the drilling was vertical, not vertical, but horizontal.
Right.
And just enough more pitch to have the mortar and the drilling material fall out of the hole.
Okay. So, let me see. You have some pictures?
I'm going through.
Okay.
We're going through.
Okay, while you're going through, are there any people you can think of in the same way that people have given me your name? Are there any others you can think of who are still around, who would be willing to?
There was Johnny George. Yeah, I guess you got that.
Right, because he gave me.
He was a hard working guy. But anyhow, he used to ride the trains and bring the ore out to the shaft, the biggest portion of his time.
We just saw Howard Spears. He was the attorney for the mine.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s. He's 68 years old.
How do you spell that?
S-P-E-E-R.
S-P-E-R. Where is his?
He's right here in Randolph. With my mother's death, we took some paperwork to him.
Okay. So he represented Shamoon?
No, he represented the people that worked there.
Oh.
I thought he
The
also,
ones that
but then I also thought he did work for it.
where they either collected some dust in the earlier days, and in my time they didn't do any dry drilling. Everything was water because the union came in and the health department forced the company to put the water in.
Also, yeah, but also I think he worked for the company, so that he came across some paperwork, on behalf of the company. That's why they should do certain things.
Do the men wear masks when they drill?
They did when it was dry, drilling dry. After that, they didn't.
S-P-E-A-R.
Johnny George gave me his name. Where does he live? Do you know?
He's in, right across the street, from the St. Mary's, Parish Hall.
See, he's in Mount Hope.
He's in Mount Hope.
Okay. And what did he do there?
What did Chummy do?
That I couldn't do.
Okay.
He worked in the mines, basically.
Okay.
Well, he started to work in his younger days, but I don't know what he's doing now.
No. He was an underground man.
He worked underground, yes.
Okay. You know, it's amazing how this woman in Rockaway said there was no one around anymore. But I must be talking to a lot of ghosts.
No, this is Replogle. This is Allen Wood Mine.
That's the Allenwood mine?
That's the Allen Wood Mine.
In Mineville?
No, that's in,
I was given the name Jesse Pizarro,
yeah,
a drill sharpener.
yeah.
Do you know what town he's in? Jesse.
Mike Bobinick,
No, Jesse
Jesse
Pizarro.
Pizarro.
Jesse Brazil.
Do you know what town he lives in?
I'm only guessing. I would say probably.
You think probably Rockaway?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Then I was also given Mike Sikolas,
Sakalis.
an electrician.
Mike, yeah,
Okay, is he's local also?
yes.
Okay, and then the Mike Novak family in Bovieville. And I guess Bovieville was part of Rockaway.
It's between, it's on Route 15, going out of Dover, toward the Town Square Mall up near,
Okay, is it still called Bovieville?
just west of
Yeah.
Okay. Barbara Ackerson gave me that name. Then Bob Hagerman.
Ackerman, he was a government man. He
Apparently,
worked for the government man as an inspector.
oh, okay. Apparently he was a geologist.
Yes, he was, but he also took that job after.
Oh, okay. And then there's Steve Hay from the New York office of Shamoon. Then there's a John Rushik. Ken Kramer gave me his name. And an Arthur Casperson, who's out in Pennsylvania. A surveyor helper, John Schmidt, gave me his name. And there's Andy Harsanyi.
Yeah.
Charles Brusso.
Charles
Yeah.
dead.
He's dead. Okay. Charles Shannick.
Charles Bruzo didn't work in the mine.
Yeah, I understand he was a personnel manager. No.
No, he didn't have nothing to do with the mine.
Okay. Oh, okay.
He worked. He lived in the same house I did, and he never worked in the mine. He worked somewhere else.
Okay, but he's dead, so
Yeah, he died.
it's all his secrets died with him.
His-
Charles.
His son is still living.
Okay, then I was told there's a Charles Shannick, son-in-law of Shamoon.
Stanek.
Shannick.
Shannick, yeah.
And a Charlie Struble from Rockaway.
Charlie Struble, I think, is still living.
You think so?
Yeah, I think. Well, I know his daughters are.
Oh, and Johnny George gave me one of the name Alan Neitz,
Needs, yeah, he's living.
Victory Garden.
Victory Garden.
And those are all the people I still, and I'm sure when I meet those people, they'll give me other names. I'm talking to a lot of ghosts who aren't supposed to be around.
Yeah.
Anyone else you can think of?
Did George ever live?
Huh?
George ever work in the mine?
George? Yes, he did. Yeah.
Who was
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, he used to be run a muck machine.
George, that's the one that used to live next to Mama George's
Yeah.
house.
Okay,
George, but, we called them for my parents' 60th anniversary, because they were both in their weddings, and they're basically pregnant. Just a mom.
Okay.
Well, Helen George was cut with it.
Yeah, but she's dead.
Yeah, she's dead.
Well, at least 5 years ago.
Okay.
George
Would
was
your
alive.
sister remember anything, perhaps, that might be useful?
She goes back a long way.
Does she live locally?
She lives in Pennsylvania, Bath, Pennsylvania, but she comes here on weekends.
Okay, how far away is that?
It's near Nazareth.
That's what?
Yeah.
showed you this picture, right? Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember.
Yeah. She was born when?
She was born in 38.
I know.
Now this one here, this
I
picture.
think I showed that to you. There we go. No idea when that was taken.
Oh,
Have you found anything else?
no, not really.
Really?
Everything's just kind of, I'm looking at my grandmother's, all my grandmother's stuff, probably a lot more of the older.
It's funny, you can't really see any difference in the clothing. I can picture people wearing
Yeah.
clothing like that today. What year was this car?
Here's the chickens.
You're a pretty good looking fella there. What year was that car? My father had a 37 Pontiac.
Oh, I think that's a Chrysler.
I learned to drive on that 37 Pontiac.
Huh?
I learned to drive on a 37 Pontiac.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a Chrysler.
Yeah, this is the, one of my birthdays, this is the old house by the pond with no running water.
Uh-huh.
So it's, really kind of tiny, but
Yeah. Did you get a pump in the house at any point?
Let's see.
a pump in the,
Yeah. Did you get a did you get inside water at any point?
yeah, my father had hooked up to the pond. This is the pond. It's a picture of my sister that you can see on the edges, there's, houses.
Well, when you say you hooked up, it was probably just running water.
It was just running water, and it just came to a sink with faucets.
Oh, okay.
There were no, bathrooms.
Okay. Did you folks ever have a washing machine there?
Yes,
Washing machine, yeah.
Yeah. We had a, ringer machine.
Right.
Oh, that was the first one, but after that, we had the,
Yeah, but that's the only one we had in the one, right now, pond house. When we
yeah,
lived in,
in the pond house, we had a Kenmore, washer, and running water.
yeah, but that was still about the ringer.
You know, that, we had the ringer at first.
Okay.
Had your sister swimming on the wall.
Uh-huh. I understand, talking about wages for a moment, I understand a lot of the, or some of the pay raises went like a 1.5 cent per hour increase in those days.
Yeah, yeah, and then the union had an awful hard job trying to wiggle some additional money until we put our foot down. You either fork over more money or we close.
Uh-huh.
And we did, and that's when the scabs, that's what they were called, put the sugar in the gasoline tanks.
Uh-huh.
And I happened to spot sugar on the ground. I said, "Whoa,
Right.
don't go starting your cars."
Uh-huh.
And tested all of what you called it, and gave the bill to the company.
Did you, when you were the local president, did you get any special benefits? It's not like today, where the local president or the shop steward gets
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice car to drive in.
Yeah, they all got their dance. yeah, we all had.
Oh, you all had, okay.
No, but the union didn't give it to you, you bought your own cars.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, no, the union had, see now, if you go to a local shop steward for the Teamsters or one of these, he drives up in a black Buick.
The
That's
only
a
thing my
black-
father had was a company truck. That was the union, that's
That
what
was
it
management, right, right.
Because we were living here and he'd be going to work in that truck.
See, I bought my first truck, that was 1937.
Yeah, but this is,
36, I had a company car, a truck pickup.
never had a pickup when I was growing up until, you bought your first Ford like in 73 or 74, because I just came across it.
In the 70s.
That's your first truck that you bought, but up until then, you had your own truck.
Okay,
72, there was a company pickup I had.
right.
Mine, I put a cap on it.
That was
And I
leisure.
still have the sleeper you put in it.
Okay.
And we used to go, I bought the sleeper when we taken the family to Vermont. That's where I was born.
Yeah.
I still have the darn thing in the house. I've been trying to cut it up, trying to give it away, but I hated like hell to spend money to get it out. And I figured, well, I'll take it and cut it up, tie it up, and let the junkie take it.
My father's father worked in the marble quarries. That's what he did.
Uh-huh.
That's where they used to cut it up in little half-inch sliver pieces.
Right. Oh, in terms of the household chores, Mother did the wash,
Yeah.
were you expected to
Yeah.
help with that?
My sister helped more. I was just
Okay.
more or less on my
Who
own.
took care of, the chickens?
No. I was too young for the chickens. We had the chickens when we were living on the pond house, the house with no water. When we lived in the Faish house, we had not had chickens for a number
Okay.
of years.
Okay.
We had chickens in the early 50s that I remember.
Chicken, and before that, we had a cow.
But I don't remember when I was a kid.
Anything else either of you can think of?
Do we have your card? Think of
Sure,
something.
absolutely. Absolutely. As I indicate, I still work, so this is my business card. I'll give you each one. How's that?
Okay.
And one for you. You. And if you can think of anything.
Building over here, this was what they
Yeah.
called the Boy Scout cabin. They had
It's
a-
still there.
It's still there. The Boy Scouts, many of the local boys,
Right.
would go and have their jamborees
I
and
was
their
there.
campouts. You were
Yeah, I've been there. It was right off Mount Hope Road. There was an iron gate
Going
not
up to,
open.
towards Picatinny.
Right.
Used to be a main entrance to Picatinny when, cars, rush hour,
Right.
steady stream of traffic.
Right.
This is one of the properties, the houses, were right on the lake, right up in that corner.
Who owned these houses?
Mine.
Oh,
They were company houses. And the company, mine also owned the property for the Boy Scout camp.
There's someone swimming in there.
That's my sister.
Oh, okay.
We learned to swim before I could walk.
So some of those houses must have been very nice.
But they're all very nice,
Oh,
just to have running
well
water.
kept up,
Yeah.
and you bought your own paint, you painted your own house.
You had to provide all the maintenance.
Except, major stuff like, adding dormers or,
Well, they were gonna put the dormers, they never did. Instead of, they had, the carpenters brought the tools down to put dormers on both families, a big, with a wall between the inside of the dormer. But right at that time, person moved out, of the Faish house, and instead of doing that, they said, go ahead, move over into the Faish house.
Okay. Now,
these pictures were taken in Hickory Hill. That's my grandmother in her backyard.
now I heard another story which you might know something about. I was told that the township came along and told Mount Hope that they had to start putting in indoor plumbing. And according to the story, Mount Hope was going to charge additional to the residents for until the cost of the plumbing was paid, and the residents refused to pay it, and everyone was then evicted.
Evicted and tore the houses.
That is correct.
That's, I guess, way after we were living in the face house.
Okay.
That's after when we were living in the face
Yeah,
house.
well, we had to get out and, moved out of the base house.
Yeah.
And there was that was,
Yeah, but this was
Put
a couple
into
of
the
years
double
after we
house.
had been living there, yeah.
that's what we did there.
Did you have the name Hank Schwellenbach?
No.
Is he still living there, do you know?
Maybe, he was a hell of a nice guy.
He was a superintendent, wasn't he? Wasn't he a superintendent?
Yes, he was.
Hank, what's his name?
Schwellenbach.
Do you know how to spell it?
SCHWELLENBACH.
Any idea where he lives?
He lived in the company house for a while, then he left Mount Hope, and then he came back. He came back in the 70s.
Oh, he went to work with the state.
So far as you know, he might still be living within the Morris County area.
No, I have no idea where he's living.
Okay.
But he, I know, was in the company, he was a superintendent.
Okay. Anyone else?
Christie's did it, Harold.
Could I borrow these three?
Which one's in there?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Yeah. What is this? Chest 38 and a half. Underarm. Someone was knitting. Yeah.
Some-
Why don't you put your?
Oh, you have your,
Yeah. Why don't you put your? Make sure I can get that. So you.
See, I remember when we were living in a fish house, that was turned over into a boarding house. And of course, the boarding house at that time had to have some kind of a plumbing. So there used to be a toilet out into where it used to be the caretaker's domain, a small room. And that, I followed the pipe that went out into that, and it emptied into the cistern. And of course, you couldn't use that for drinking water anymore.
Yeah. So now the fish house did the fish house have indoor water, inside water?
It did have, yes.
Yes.
It did have, but it wasn't connected to the pipe that I'm speaking of.
Okay. Did that have its own well?
Yeah, it had its own well.
that was
Okay.
city.
Well, later on, it was put into
Okay.
city water.
Okay. And outhouse?
Not
Yeah,
the fish house.
No, it didn't have no.
Okay. Fish house had
Inside plumbing.
inside plumbing. Okay. Okay, great, thank you. So, what's your zip code here? Because we'll know it's not.
07801. That's 38 Glenwood Avenue.
Right, that I have. Okay. Turn that on again. With regard to promotions, was everything by seniority? Promotions.
No, it didn't go to seniority. It went to what you did.
So if, let's say you needed a new driller, the driller
Well,
moved away, and
not to the drill, because it's easy to teach somebody how to drill.
okay, let's say a drill sharpener.
Because the drill sharpener was a business of its own.
Let's say a drill. Let's say a drill sharpener. A drill sharpener either died, we'll say of old age,
Well,
or
see,
moved away, how is his position filled?
Well, see, first of all, they used to have solid steel drills. And then after a while, they knew how to penetrate the center and put a hole through the steel. And it's a hexagon steel. And then they had bumped up an inch and a half hole, and then an inch and a quarter, down to an inch and an eighth. And of course, that was the end. But then later on, they knew how to put a thread on, and then they put a bit on. And you got a string of bits. They had two of inch and three quarter, and even the 2-inch bit, and then went down, graduated down to a smaller size.
Okay,
But then,
if you needed a new line captain, how was the promotion done?
well, that was done by management.
Yeah, but what did they go by seniority, or did they just pick and choose, or could they pick out somebody from the outside?
No, they picked somebody from the outside. That was management job, engineering.
Okay, how about a drill sharpener, if they needed a new drill sharpener? Who picked that person?
Well, he left. There was his other helper took over. The new guy.
Okay, so how would the new guy get the job? Was it by favoritism? Was it by seniority?
No, I would say a little bit of both.
Now, when you were there, if let's say you needed a new drill sharpener, someone came along and he said, "I'm the senior man," but he didn't know anything about drill sharpening. Could he still get the job?
Well, he would apply for it. But generally, there was always a new man put in there as a helper. Because, see, you had to bump up the steel.
Okay.
See, and then you put a new head on. Later on, that was eliminated, and you put a thread. You bumped it up, put a new thread on.
Yeah. Okay, but let's say we're talking about an electrician. The electrician leaves. You need a new electrician. Now, someone says, "I have seniority, and I'm a good friend of yours, but I don't know anything about electricity. Can I get the job?"
We never had a problem with that, so I can't say very well because I guess everybody was satisfied with the job they were doing, and nobody
Okay.
raised too much of a question because the electrician they had 3 of them. The last one he never knew nothing about electricity, but he soon found out, and then later left, went into business himself.
Oh my. Okay.
You had to,
Had a buddy?
you had to have somebody to go with you.
Right.
He either knew nothing about the mine, but he knew if he went in from here and you were going out there, there was an end somewhere. So there was nothing for him to forget. But on this way, you had many entrances going up vertically,
Okay.
not at 90 degrees, about 70 degrees. And first, in order to make it, you had to drill it. And then you walked up and down with just pins 1 foot apart.
Okay.
And that's what you climbed up to your working place. And then you built yourself two holes on both sides, and you put planking on it. And you set up your working station.
But you
Okay.
always worked with somebody else, so.
No.
No.
They worked themselves.
Once they got there.
Huh?
Once they got to that area, they worked by themselves. Because you said that before that no one went by themselves; they always had a buddy.
Well, you see, there was Stokeman. That's the one that broke the ore down.
Right.
There was two men.
Okay.
And then they put a column bar up and set up a machine, two drillers.
Okay.
And then it was left that way until the mine's closed.
Okay.
I think we're at sensory overload.
Good thing. Okay. Yeah. Good thing. Okay. I understand before the union came in, there was a foreman, and each day the foreman would tell somebody he was fired, and he would replace that person with a member of his family who just came off the boat from Europe.
Well, that's way before my time.
Right. And if someone needed to be promoted and he was a buddy with the foreman or a member of the family, he would get promoted. If he wasn't a member of the family or a buddy, he wouldn't. But I've also heard stories where the union said it was strictly seniority and the person didn't know anything about it, and so they had to put an extra person on who did know something about it and let the guy with seniority keep the job.
Well, they wouldn't put three men there. The men with the experience soon taught the other guys how to drill. Because he was a driller himself after.
Right.
So it was nothing to teach a guy that didn't know nothing.
Right.
Because that wasn't that hard to take that
But
up.
Dad told me a story the other day about, after the mine was closing, down, he had to stay home on Sundays because, if the pumps failed, he had to call 5 people to come, and, this was all you could do.
That's by the union tradition.
But the alarm was in our house that would go off.
Now, he was president of the union then? Well,
No,
not-
he wasn't management
Okay.
at that time. And my father would have to call 5 union people, electrician,
2 electricians,
a hoist man,
mechanic.
if you weren't needed, a mechanic, and, another person, like the hoist man didn't show, my father would have to, he needed the hoist man.
I was the voice man,
And he didn't
and
get
I
paid
was
for
getting
it
paid.
because it was management, he had to be there.
Pumps failed, I was the one who was notified.
But the
So
hoist
some
man
people-
got paid, even though he wasn't there.
You had to pay him.
Even though he wasn't there.
But generally, he was the kind of a guy that, he was a home man, and a church going. He was a pillar of the church. And you could always get him at after a certain hour. He was always home.
Right.
And he was reliable.
Uh-huh.
And of course, he was a good, solid friend of mine and family's. And even to this day, his sister is pretty close to our
In terms of the people who had certain jobs, were there people who could, like yourself, who could do more than one thing? Like you mentioned, you ran the hoist. You were a miner. You were a driller. Did you ever, for example, run the locomotive?
Yes. All along the years, you graduated into
Right.
easier jobs and paid a little bit more.
Right.
That's the way it was. But at that time, we had there was no problem committing the company officials to agree to whatever problems had
Right.
arisen.
The interesting thing about the miners, even if they didn't work in mines anymore, all the home property
spare it, then they did. They didn't. Right, the place either closed down and then found out that, well, it's gonna stay that way because they're not gonna give in.
Or they found some money.
So there's
Things
not
haven't
enough
changed.
money to pay
Things
them.
haven't changed very much.
Right.
Right.
Because they had to pay your insurance, they had to pay your death benefits, so.
And I understand, as you just mentioned, that, you know, a lot of people never got their pension.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
One of the things I remember is the insurance salesman who used to come door to door every month collecting premiums. He had this little big black book in his beach house. I remember that growing up. That was Finnegan.
Vinegar.
Was long haired. But we had tinkers coming around to sharpen knives. An insurance person. What else did we have?
How about meat? Where did you buy meat?
Huh?
Where did you go? Where was the butcher?
Butcher? Oh, no. Well, at first it was the store, the company store.
Okay.
But then little by little, they figured, well, a pound of pork or a pound of beef costs too much money. I can get it for half in Dover.
Didn't Dr. Bertha's father have a butcher wagon down the drive?
Oh, yeah, yeah, there used to be a butcher wagon. They used to come through, one from Wharton, one from Dover, and one from Highburn used to come down with the horse.
I remember as a very young child, probably in the 40s, the ice man coming around selling box of ice, or refrigerators, or ice
No,
box.
ice box.
Ice box.
It's a box.
Right.
That was a very early memory, and it didn't last long.
My grandmother had one of those.
What other tradesmen would come?
Huh?
What other tradesmen would come around in their wagons? Do you remember?
Well, I know in Passaic when we lived there, they used to come and he'd holler out there, ah-ho! Ah-ho! That means coal.
Oh.
So he'd fill up a bag of coal and he took it in and that's what you heated the house with.
Was there a fish wagon that came around?
Fish wagon, yeah, there was a fish
Where,
wagon.
in Mount Hope?
No,
No.
in the city.
Yeah.
Okay, where did
Because
you?
of Mount Hope, you had the pond, you had pickerel, you had bass, you had
Okay.
birds.
Oh, okay. Did you have to buy kerosene, or was that given to you?
No, you had to buy.
You had to buy it.
Usually kerosene, the delivery person. We had tanks.
Right.
For the stove, I remember we would have a tank that you could fit on the stove, but then we would deliver it in the barrel that was 10 pounds high.
And you had no potbelly stove.
No
No potbelly stove.
We did in the Fage house
In the fish house, we had it
in the
first,
kitchen.
then they put two furnaces in. And then I ordered it, put gas in it instead of oil. That bottle gas.
Right. How often did your family as a whole get together in the living room on a Sunday?
Oh, we were always there. That's where the TV was. That's where, we also had a nice big fireplace and, we spent a lot of time there.
But the fireplace, you almost walked into it.
So,
Why?
Uh-huh.
See, the fish house that we lived in,
Yeah.
that was all one family house.
Right.
That was the house.
And then they split it.
Then they had servants' quarters right next to that.
So you were living in style there.
Oh, yeah.
Going from no plumbing to.
Well, that house has a lot of history.
Yeah.
A lot of history.
But, we used to, for recreation, growing up, ever since I can remember, my parents would always go on Sunday drives, and we would always go to, places, educational areas, like Gettysburg, would be a big, trip, go to Edison, to, Edison's, little day trips like that, I remember going through, Revolutionary Park in Morristown, just to see
Uh-huh.
what the little cabins were like, so. my
Or Jockey
parents-
Hollow.
And then I was in the CC, worked in the jockey house.
What did you do in the CC? Building roads?
No, I think we were shaving pieces of wood, and there was a clamp, and you put your foot down, and you shaved some kind of wood, and then it was put together by another group up in Boone. And then there was a colored camp, Summit, and they had their work cut out, different kind of work. And I think they used to plant trees. So in the CCs, you had each and every one doing a certain thing.
He made fences, colonial fences.
Colonial fences, and then the fences
tree
that were
surgery.
crossed this way, one on top of the other, and they were.
Oh, okay, like the colonial fences, uphill fences.
And you did tree surgery there, a little bit of agriculture. So they taught them.
And we treated, trying to preserve, and did preserve some trees in Morristown that are still alive, the elms. The elms got
Right.
seed, what they call it, the elm.
How many years were you working on that? Could I use the bathroom, by the way?
Sure.
Let me turn this on. How many years were you working for the Civilian Conservation Corps?
Oh, probably 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you go to the mines right after that?
No, I went to work in Boone Morgan. I used to, if you know, they used to call an item clean tea, a teapot, and then you had a plastic thing with you pushed a spring in there, and that didn't leave the tea leaves to fall out, and you put the rubber end over the end of the teapot, and they used to call that clean tea.
Oh.
And I used to sand the bird off of both ends, and that was a belt. So I said, boy, how many times did that would slip out of your fingers? My fingers always bleeding,
Uh-huh.
and that was to make clean tea. But then they used to make bottled